Hello, everybody. So today we are going to look at what we call the stock system of nomenclature. Really, all this means is that we're naming ionic compounds of transition metals. So in your Edmodo, go to the post that says naming ionic compounds of transition metals. We have the link for the reading. We have the practice questions. And we have my email you can send your answers to. So let's take a look at this naming system. So naming compounds that have transition metal cations is a little bit tricky because we know that transition metals can form different ions. They can form multiple ions with different charges. Okay? So for example, if we were to name the binary ionic compound with this formula, we can't just call it iron chloride. Okay, this doesn't tell us what the charge of this iron is. Okay, so to name it, we need to figure out the charge of the iron. Now we know that there are 3 chloride ions, and chloride ions have a -1 charge. So the charge of the single iron, it has to balance out the negative charge of the chloride ions. So if we have 3, we have -3. So we know that we are going to need a +3. Since we only have 1 iron, we know that the charge of this iron is +3. So therefore, we can name it iron 3 chloride. All right, the charge is going to be in parentheses, and it is going to be written as a Roman numeral. So we have a few examples here. So for C2O, that's copper 1 oxide, CuO, copper 2 oxide, SnO2, tin 4 oxide. So the first two are copper oxides. So the ratio of copper to oxide ions is going to determine the name. So oxide ions are -2. And if we have 2, then this must be +1 so that we can get +2 to balance out the -2 of the oxygen. In the second formula, we only have 1 copper to the 1 oxide ion. So since there's 1 copper, it has to be a +2 charge to balance out the -2 of the oxygen. The tin, there are 2 oxides, and what you do when you have a subscript is you multiply the charge by that subscript. So -2 times 2, we get -4. So the charge of these oxide ions is -4. And since we have 1 tin, it needs to be a +4 charge to balance it out. All right? So that's how we get the name tin 4 oxide. So hopefully that all makes sense. Make sure you finish your questions and turn them in to me.